Viewers, welcome again. Today I have selected a very difficult and critical topic for discussion. In the screen, what you have seen is a very jumbled up section of words. There are sentences or words, phrases jumbled up together so that nothing is very clear. So let us make it clear, and as you can understand that this is very intentional. Intentionally I have given this so that you can understand today's topic is not very easy one. So this is what I have to deal with today. The characters in search of meaning, 6 characters in search of an author, Luigi Pirandello. So this is the topic, the very renowned text of Pirandello, 6 characters in search of author. The text which I follow here, that means that I'm going to mention page numbers and act numbers from this text. This is the Bloomsbury publication and it is translated by John Lindstrom. So Luigi Pirandello, 6 characters in search of an author. Now let us first understand a very serious issue regarding this type of drama. So quoting Pirandello from an address at Barcelona in 1934, we're explaining the theatre strategy adopted by him. Here, Pirandello himself says this: "People say that my drama is obscure and they call it cerebral drama. The new drama possesses a distinct character from the old, whereas the latter had as its basis passion, the former is the expression of the intellect. One of the novelties that I have given to modern drama consists in converting the intellect into passion. The public formerly were carried away only by plays of passion, whereas now they rush to see intellectual works." So this is the difference that Pirandello made earlier in 1934 at Barcelona. So it is not about the cerebral drama or psychological impact, rather it is about the human passion, or rather a new kind of technique that is seriously adopted by Pirandello, and that we are going to experience throughout this video. Now let us understand who is this person, the writer of 6 characters in search of an author, who is, by the way, Pirandello. So here is a quick review of who is Luigi Pirandello, the person. He was born in Sicily in 1867 and went on to become one of the most significant Italian writers of the 20th century. Pirandello was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1934, largely for his contributions to the theatre, including 6 characters in search of an author. The play was written in 1921 and is considered one of Pirandello's most groundbreaking works, as it challenges traditional notions of character development and narrative structure. Because the play's name is 6 characters in search of an author, so what about the characters? So who are the characters? For that, I have divided the characters into 3 segments, as it is called 6 characters, so I have selected the 6 characters separately. So father, mother, 22-year-old son, stepdaughter, adolescent boy, and a female child. And the rest are other characters. So these are the other characters which are also included in the text. And the third part is the minor characters, just the 2 characters here. Now, after the introduction of the characters, or rather who are these characters, or what are the characters included in the play, we have to understand the story of the play in a nutshell. So after that we will discuss several other topics one by one. So an acting company prepares to rehearse the play The Rules of the Game by Luigi Pirandello. 6 characters arrived. Father explains that they are unfinished characters in search of an author. Gradually, they reveal their stories. The father and mother had one child together, the son, but they have separated, and mother has had 3 children by another man, the stepdaughter, the boy, and the child, a girl. The father attempted to buy sex from the stepdaughter. The mother walked and informs the stepdaughter that he is her ex-husband. While the director is not an author, he agrees to stage their story despite disbelief among the jeering actors. After 20 minutes break, all return to the stage. They begin to perform the scene between the stepdaughter and the father in Madame Pes's shop, which the director decides to call scene 1. The director asks the actors to observe the scene because he intends for them to perform it later. This sparks the first argument between the director and the characters over the acting of the play. The characters had assumed that they would be performing it Seeing as they are the characters already, the director continues the play, but the stepdaughter has more problems with the accuracy of the setting, saying she doesn't recognize the scene. And this is already in the second act. The starting of the second act, we have seen this. The scene begins between Madame Pace and the stepdaughter, where Madame Pace telling her she must work as a prostitute to save the mother's job. After the father and the stepdaughter act half of the scene, the director stops them so that the actors may perform what they have just done. The characters break into laughter as the actors try to imitate them. The actors continue, but the stepdaughter cannot contain her laughter as the actors use the wrong tones and voice and gestures. This time, the stepdaughter explains the rest of the scene during an argument with the director over the truth on stage. The scene culminates in an embrace between the father and the stepdaughter, which is realistically interrupted by the distressed mother. The line between reality and acting is blurred, and the scene closes with the director pleased with the first act. The father begins another argument with the director over the realism of the actors compared to the characters themselves. The director allows the characters to perform the rest of the scene and decides to have the rehearsals later. Now, on the next slide, you can have the final part of the story, that the final act of the play begins in the garden. It is revealed that there was much arguing among the family members, and the father sent the mother, the stepdaughter, the child, the boy, and the son to come back and stay with him. The son reveals that he hates the family for sending him away and does not consider the stepdaughter or the others as the part of his family. The scene ends with the child drowning in a fountain, the boy committing suicide with a revolver, and the stepdaughter running out of the theater, leaving the son, the mother, and the father on stage. The play ends with the director confused over whether it was real or not, concluding that in either case he lost a whole day over it. Now, this is a very superficial summary of the play. Do not judge this summary as the whole of the play, and do not let your argument based on these lines. So it is just a superficial way of saying a summary of the text. But why I have given this? In order to get the touch of the text, in order to get somehow a hold of the text, so that you can relate the ideas later that we are going to discuss after reading the text or after at least knowing the summary. Now, let us know some basic informations then. Pirandello was influenced by a number of Italian theatrical models for 6 characters in search of an author. The idea of 6 characters wearing masks which embody their emotions, for instance, harks back to the commedia dell'arte tradition in Italian theatre, where figures such as Harley Quinn and Sacramouche represent particular personalities. And to some extent, Pirandello's play relates to a more systematic artistic revolution in 1920s, which is called surrealism. The surrealists insisted that by freeing the mind from the limiting controls of rationality, logic, consciousness, or aesthetic conventions, an artist could reach a higher reality that would include the fantastic and the marvelous, qualities that had generally been considered antithetical to realism. So this is somehow related to surrealistic tendencies, surrealism, the movement called surrealism. Pirandello was also interested in the theories of Stanislavski, whose method of psychological immersion, similar to but distinct from so-called method acting, was becoming popular in Europe at the time. Actors should spend a long time becoming the part they are playing, through training their brains in certain ways of thinking and responding. This theory clearly informs 6 characters in search of an author. So these are the ideas that are associated with Pirandello as well as with the drama 6 characters in search of an author. Now let us move on to certain topics. These topics are not in that way because the text is very critical, not an easy one. So I have also jumble all of the ideas together in that way. So here are topics that I have selected so far, the concepts which need literally serious explanations, and we are going to deal with one by one. So let us move on to the first topic, that is the 6 characters in search of an author mainly represents the conflict between illusion and reality. So Pirandello's 6 characters in search of an author breaks down the ordinarily straightforward boundaries between fantasy and reality, art and life, and others and the self. His characters know they are characters and ask what this means for themselves, even though doing so requires violating the fundamental rules of the play's fictional universe. The lead character, the father, even declares that the characters are more real than the actors, which sets off protracted debate about what is real, what is illusory, and whether people are themselves at all. So this you can find from the first act to the third act, specifically in the first act where there is a debate between the producer and the father that they are real characters, and the producer is saying that characters are not real, actors are real and the characters are on the script. So from there, this conflict between illusion and reality begins. The stage manager, which is also the producer in this text, that text that I'm following, however, here is written the stage manager or the manager. The stage manager strives his maximum to make his characters appear true. This bears testimony to the fact that they are true. That this is why we have the real 6 characters arriving and mocking at them later. The director or the producer wants Madame Pace to utter some lines loudly. Even in the theater, you have to make yourself heard. That are meant for her, she hesitates to do so, also because it is not within the norms of propriety. However, the stage manager insists that she must do so, else the audience cannot hear her. That again illustrates that the characters do not speak for themselves, but for the audience to hear, and again, they are not real. This you can find in the first act, almost page number in 27, 29, and 37. Moving on to the next, the director tempers with the original story as it should be presentable on the stage. The stepdaughter wants him to be presentable on stage. The stepdaughter wants him to present the scene where she was seduced by her stepfather as it was on the stage. The director hesitates. This is the theater. We can only take so much of the truth here, and this bears testimony of the so-called facts. In the theater, they shy away from the real truth and so do not act upon social realities directly. So there is also the limitations of theater that I am going to discuss on the next slides. However, in the aspect of illusion and reality, so one has to have the problem of understanding which one is real and which one is an illusory aspect. So another point of 6 characters put forward that once the play terminates, the characters in the form the characters die, but they are meant to live forever. The attempt in section 2, that means the act 2, of the actors to fake on the roles of the father and stepdaughter illustrate the impossibility of art representing life. The confusion that follows the apparent death of the child when actors and the director fail to agree on the reality of what they have seen testifies the power of art. So which one is real and which one is not real, that becomes a question. So at the end, when you find that the incident with the revolver, what basically happens, that they do not understand which one is real, whether the committing suicide is a real fact or not. That remains a question, a confusion. And in that way, there is still a conflict between illusion and reality. And towards the end, the impossibility of resolving the conflict is summed up in the words of the director, who curses all of them, wasting his time in vain. So in that way, we can understand that there are a lot of examples in the text that can prove or that can point out the thematic aspect of the conflict between illusion and reality. The next topic is the characters have their unindividualized individuality. What does that even mean? The characters have their unindividualized individuality. They are Ben Jonson's types that have Shakespeare's depth. So they have Ben Jonson's types means that, for example, in Volpone or The Alchemist, the characters behave as they are meant to be, or from the name of the characters, we can understand that this is how they are going to behave. And Shakespeare's depth suggests that the psychological aspect, they are psychologically based on, and the strength of the character remains on the psychology of the characters. So they have an objective reality with respect to the actor, but they have a sad subjective reality in the sense that they cannot change. So in Act 2, page 22, where you can find the conversation between leading actress and the producer, and from there you can understand that the subjective reality is very, very much focused on. A similar theme is echoed in the dramatist's Puppets, where the puppet's face is unchanging, turning a deaf ear to the story's demands, and especially when the Commedia dell'arte had typically mercurial changes of attitude. There occurs reversal in the prompter's duty to remind actor of their lines from the preset script. He now turns life into a written text as he religiously takes down the actions of the real characters. So what happens that the prompter is here going to prompt the actor the dialogues because the characters are real now and actors are going to perform the role of the characters. So he, that means the prompter, is now going to write down their life as a written text. So it just reverses, and the prompter's duty is now to take the materials from the direct actions of the real characters, the characters who just appeared on the stage. Also is presented in the play the problem of defining the limitations of theatre that I was talking about in the earlier slide, and the distinction between rehearsing or living scene. This leads to a clash of views in Act 2 between the manager and the stepdaughter. Moreover, when the father is surprised to hear the word rehearsal and affirms that they are the characters, the producer or the manager makes clear about the unindividuality of the characters. So here from the text from Act 2, page 37, that right, you are the characters, but characters don't act here, my dear chap. It's actors who act here. The characters are there in the script. So this is the unindividuality of the individual characters, that you are not here to act. We are going to rehearse your actions by the actors, and after that the play is going to be performed. So this individuality of the characters are not individual anymore. They have the depth, but the psychological and troublesome aspects are very concrete and confusive here. So the readers not easily can understand what is actually happening here. Significantly, there is a speech of the father in Act 1 in page 29, where he is expressing the idea of individuality, the belief that we all, you see, think of ourselves as one single person, but it's not true. Each of us is several different people, and all these people live inside us. With one person we seem like this, and with another we seem very different, but we always have the illusion of being the same person for everybody. So this is the illusion of behaving in that way, that same person for everybody, but actually we are not same. We play act differently, we role play with other people with different situation differently. So that is the unindividualized individuality reflected in the character. Moving on to the next slide, we have to understand the scientific and philosophical theories of relativity in sex characters in search of an author. In 1916, Albert Einstein proposed the general theory of relativity. So I am not going to talk about the relativity theory because it is more difficult to understand. But how that is connected with this text, that is important for us. This mode of scientific relativism touched the thought pattern of the creative writers, natural. In Six Characters in Search of an Author, the father repeatedly talks about the impossibility of communication. The father says, since there is no objective truth, there is no chance of coming to terms to reality at concrete level. The father continues to argue that each of us has his or her own truth, own reality embedded in his or her solipsistic world. This remark made by the father in his argument with other characters in the play proves that the father is an ardent follower of the subjective truth. The notion of subjective truth, the notion of personal reality, and the notion of individual perception are the effects of widening impact of the early 20th century's scientific relativism. That is what I want to suggest. In the end, the father affirms his firm belief in the changing perception, which is the greatest contribution dubbed by the scientific relativism to the field of art. In Act 3, the father says, what was real for the actors in the past becomes an illusion in the present. Whatever is a reality today, whatever you touch and believe in that art seems real for you today, is going to be like the reality of yesterday, an illusion tomorrow. So Act 3, page 64. This remark, inserted by the father in the middle of the conversation, exemplifies the fact that the absolute categories of truth began to dwindle down with the emergence of the theory of scientific relativism. If perception is changing, reality also can change. If reality can change, it can become illusion, natural. If reality gives way to illusion, the separate domains of both reality and illusion crisscross. The increasingly blurred boundary between illusion and reality is illustrated in the final scene where the manager utters, pretends in response to the father says, reality. So it is about the perception that is changing. It is about the scientific and philosophical theories of relativity that gives a newer idea to understand, to comprehensibility. So what is real today may be an illusion tomorrow. So what is illusion and what is reality, they are colliding with each other, they crisscross, and that is a point where the scientific relativism comes out, scientific truth that is coming out. So the subjective truth, that is the belief of the father, is a mark of the scientific and philosophical theories of relativity as found in 6 characters in search of an author. The next topic is the modernism in 6 characters in search of an author. So what is modern, or the traits of modernism that we find in the text? The play experiments with the limits of realism. It exposes unhesitatingly the loopholes and shortcomings of realism. Perhaps this play alone is a play to pronounce that realism cannot succeed confidently to tackle the new problems in the lives of modern man. According to Pirandello, reality can no longer remain an antithesis of illusion. In the world solely guided by the tenets of modernism, reality can become a part and parcel of illusion and vice versa. Reality can be exchangeable with illusion. The boundary between the illusion and the reality is in a position to blur. This happened perceptibly in the last part of the play. At last, both the manager and the father were left debating over whether the death of the boy and the child was reality or pretense. Their debate continued to persist, but the tragic death had already occurred. This philosophical scrutiny of the relation between the illusion and reality is an element of modernism. So this what happens, the relation between the illusion and reality. It is not only that you are making a difference between between illusion and reality, also you are making a connection between reality and illusion. Now that is an aspect of modernistic philosophy. The aspect of modernism is expressed through this. The play brings into the foreground another element of modernism. The play calls into question our sense of identity or of self. In the modern world, identity is no longer stable. Self is volatile. The identity of modern man is the identity of instability. The self of modern man is prone to isolate. In the play, 6 characters in search of an author, 6 characters are given no name by the playwright. They want to be born as characters in the drama. Interesting. However, when the question of their names, their selves and their identity arise, they remain anonymous. Even the manager, the leading lady, the juvenile lead are given no name in the play. They are recognized by the kind of profession they do. In the modern world, we and our identity become what we do, and now we relate ourselves to those who are in almost the same and similar plight. This diminishing aspect of identity and self of modern people is equally dealt with in the play. So the next point that you can understand is the diminishing aspect of identity and self. So there is no identity, specific identity. The self is absorbed into something. So where you cannot find the original self or the reality. Therefore, the play is thematically modernist in nature. The play dramatizes the subconscious. The love of the mother for her aloof son is at the subconscious level. Love for somebody else at a subconscious level is always dangerous and self-torturing. So there is no specific idea, there is no specific aspect that you can find in the text that the mother actually loves the son. So this is the connection between the love of a mother to a son, and this happens in the subconscious level. This is not very real. This is not very existing in the world. Similarly, the father's instinctive passion for the stepdaughter is also at the subconscious level. As the father himself said, I am a slave to my instinct, that you can find in the second act. The play has developed the notion of meta-theater as an experimental modernism. It is a play about a play, theater within a theater. So play within a play. That concept that is coming very soon on the next slide. So this aspect is also an aspect of modernism. So what you can do while you write down one answer, you can merge one topic with the another so that your answer could be a concrete one. In that way you can approach, and remember to give the examples that I have given here, that I have marked with the page number, with the act number. So sincerely, if you are doing it, you are going to get good score. Now on the next slide, that Pirandello utilizes features of classical drama to create the division between the characters and the actors in the play. What is this? The real actors are the typical buffoons and the alazons. They are called the alazons, who profess to know everything regarding theatre. They pose to be condescending throughout the play, in sharp contrast to the pharmacos, who as projected as scapegoats and sufferers throughout the play. The metaphor of the mark here is extended to amplify the reality that the dramatis persona are nothing but make-believe or have a temporal existence. Again, the characters are real as they cannot escape the immutability of reality. There is conflict of life versus form, where characters are forms and the author imprisons them in the form, and it is involuntary for them to be what they are. The son tries to escape his form but cannot leave. This holds a contrast of Pirandello's previous work, Henry IV, where Henry at least can choose to remain in his role. And hence, here each of the characters are forced to play their characters till the end. So this is the division between the characters and the actors in the play. So on one hand you have alazons, on the other hand you have pharmacos. Now there I have given you a passage from Act 2 on page 37 with the conversation between the producer and the father, that you can understand the concept of this division, the characters and the actors. So whereas producer is saying, I mean a rehearsal for the benefit of the actors, pointing to the actors. Father is saying, but if we are the characters, that's right, you are the characters. Characters don't act here, my dear chap. It's actors who act here. The characters are there in the script, pointing to the prompter. That's when there is a script. Father, that's the point. Since there isn't one, and you have the luck to have the characters alive in front of you. So this is the difference between the characters and the actors. In one hand you have the actors, on the other hand you have the characters. So characters are directly, the alazons who profess to know everything regarding theater, and the actors are here like pharmacos who do not know actually, or basically they are suggested as or projected as the scapegoats. Moving on to the next slide, that we have to understand the play has metafictional features in that the dramatist himself comes in the play and he is criticized by his own characters. This is also interesting. The drama is a comment upon drama. It has a Chinese box structure, a play within a play and two stories within a story. The characters criticize themselves. In the dialogue of the characters itself, there is comment upon the action, dialogue and makeup. In Act 2, page 35 to 36, where the stepdaughter continuously comments on her likes and dislikes about the stage props. We are tempted to think, is Pirandello criticizing himself along with his counterparts in his dramatic paradox in Six Characters in Search of an Author? When he says a play doesn't create people, people create a play. Now, there is in Act 2, page number 39 to 40, there is a passage between the conversation between the father and the producer, where the father is saying that we are suffering terribly now with these bodies, these faces. The producer interrupting impatiently, yes, well, the makeup will change that, at least as far as the faces are concerned. Yes, but the voices, the gestures, that's enough. You can't come on the stage here as yourselves. It is our actors who will represent you here, and let that be the end of it. I understand that, but now I think I see why our author, who saw us alive as we are here now, didn't want to put us on the stage. I don't want to offend your actors, God forbid that I should, but I think that if I saw myself represented by I don't know whom, leading actor is now rising majestically and coming forward, followed by a laughing group of young actresses, by me if you do not object. So the father, respectfully, smoothly, I shall be honored, sir, he bows, but I think that no matter how hard this gentleman works with all his will and his art to identify himself with me, he stops confused. So this is the metafictional features that the actors are commenting, or the characters are commenting about the playwright, and the playwright's technique to represent them in the play. So continuously you can get these references, examples in the play about this metafictional quality of the drama. So here we have life versus art in Six Characters in Search of an Author. The play points out the instability of life. Pirandello explores the space where life and art collide in 6 characters. He shows that life is constantly changing and will eventually end, but art is permanent and will outlive its creators and appreciators. Whoever has the luck to be born a living character will never die. In Act 1, page 14. The father brags. Art is referred to as the form, implying its fixed, unchanging nature. The director and the characters grapple with a question with which is more true life of art. The father insists his story's passion in immortality make it truer than the constantly changing human experience. The director cannot imagine that his life is less true than a story made up by a playwright. Conversely, the director resists showing the stepdaughter's near sexual encounter with the father. Although the stepdaughter demands to show the truth, art, the director thinks, sometimes needs to conceal the truth. So there lies the conflict. There lies again dwindling situation between life and art. So what is to represent? It is the art that should be represented on the stage, and what it should represent, the life. The question becomes especially tricky when no one can decide on the truth. The son declares the father is telling fiction or lies. Every character has a different version of the family saga, and each insists his version or her version is the right one. The play provides none of the facts the director seeks and no universal anchoring truth, the grounding truth. It suggests instead that in art and in life, truth and meaning depend not on objective reality but on individual perspective. The play also considers whether art exists only as a performance. As the characters present their drama, they are eager to reveal what really happened. They want the truth to come to light, but they have actors to perform for and the play to correct. They must adjust their presentation to keep the actors interested. The director in turn feels their story is not actable. It's too long-winded, too graphic and too troubling to work as the play. He urges the stepdaughter and the Madame Pace to speak up when they are having a private conversation and implies that anyone watching the drama will lose interest if they can't hear what's being said. While the characters live out their reality, the director grows impatient for the drama the public will understand. So this is the life versus art. So through art, if you have to represent life, you have to be bold, you have to be louder. So the director is consistently trying to do that, but the actors and the characters are not performing well. So there lies the conflict between life versus art. And there are ample references in the text that you can find to point out this. Now, let us finally understand in 6 characters in search of an author, Pirandello breaks the concept of family and inverts the rules of family. It is telling that the drama embodied by Pirandello's characters concerns the characters as continual attempts and consistent failures to establish a functional household to fulfill the ideal of the nuclear family that promises to resolve their conflicts and restore them to a stable, happy harmony. In a sense, they do so succeed of the mother's 3 illegitimate children to die tragically, and one flees the stage, leaving the original nuclear family, mother, father, son, together on stage. In short, while the characters believe they can resolve their conflicts and create a happy nuclear family, it turns out that the very attempt to preserve the integrity of their family is the root of their problems. And their tragedy is inseparable from the restoration of their nuclear family. So it is no more about the nuclear family they're trying to build. Even if they are trying to build a nuclear family to represent or focus a nuclear family, it is not like that. By elaborating this conflict, which echoes his own real-life family tragedy, Pirandello challenges the assumption that the establishing family is the key to success and happiness. Instead, suggesting the difference of personality and the very pursuit of a perfect family can tragically undermine the stability that a family is supposed to provide. So it is also connected, however, somehow with the life story of Pirandello. The autobiographical elements are also connected in this. So it is about the happiness, success, instead suggesting the differences of personality. The character's tragic drama is fundamentally about the breakdown of family. Father and the stepdaughter commit a kind of incest, violating the quintessential social rule that distinguishes relatives from everyone else. By breaking the principal rule of the family, the father and stepdaughter unmake their family symbolically and precipitate its inevitable self-destruction once everyone moves in under one roof. The play inverts the rules of a family 4 times. First, the father rejects his wife to make space for his own personality. Secondly, first, the father and mother's apparently happy family is secretly a nightmare for both of them. Secondly, the father rejects his wife to make space for his own personality. Thirdly, the family is united by the father and the stepdaughter's unspeakable affront to family. Finally, through the death of the two children and the disappearance of another, the original family, father, mother, son, is reunited and brandishes its shame on stage at the end of the play. In other words, the desired nuclear family emerges only as a farce. This is more ironical, as evidence to that father's attempt to save his family for family's sake was pointless and possibly doomed to fail. So it is no matter how hard the father is trying or has tried for the family's sake, it is really a shame, or rather it seems to be a joke. The tragic nature of the character's fate is not they are duped by believing in the value of family, but they wrongly think that the principle of family can and must be more important than all their differences and conflicts. Accordingly, they get the family they wanted, but only at a horrific cost. So in that way, Pirandello breaks the concept of the family and inverts the rules of the family in the play. Now moving on to the next, let me focus on certain aspects like the stage, clothing and costumes, the revolver and the curtain. These are the symbols used in the play. Now let us move on to the first one, the stage. The physical setting of the stage represents both the characters' entrapment and the thin line between appearance and reality. The stage freezes the characters in time and space. When the son tries to leave the family, he is unable to walk down the steps from the stage. Since his role is essential to the character's story, he can't physically leave. The mother takes the boy and the little girl onto the stage with her, although they are already dead. Their memory stays alive as part of her torment. The father describes his role as a character in his sentence or punishment. He is unable to change or reconsider his actions. The physical set of the theater is meant to blur the line between stage illusion and auditorium reality. So, the stage illusion, that means from the auditorium, the spectators are watching, viewing the theater. Parisian director Georges Pirandello extended the stage with a staircase leading to the audience. The stairs, the son and the stepdaughter descend. The characters enter through the auditorium like audience members, not from backstage like the rest of the cast. The stepdaughter's final departure takes the characters from the realm of the stage into the realm of the audience. She runs through the auditorium and out into the lobby, into the audience's world and the world outside the theater. So the stage in that way gives you the illusion. Also, it emerges the issues of reality and illusion. In that way, the stage becomes a symbol in several ways. The next symbol is clothing and costumes. Clothing and costumes represent performance, presentation and identity. Pirandello wants the characters and the actors to have distinctly different wardrobes. Their costumes immediately reveal the different planes and levels of reality they inhabit. The characters' distinct costumes reflect the way they see themselves. The mother and stepdaughter are dressed conspicuously in black mourning clothes. Their wardrobe projects the losses and sorrows shaping their lives. The mother is trapped in her sadness over the family's tragedies. The stepdaughter's mourning clothes and demeanor have a showy elegance. She wants her grieving to be noticed. The son in mauve and green wears clashing different clothes from the rest of the family. He wants to stand apart from them without standing out. The boy and the little girl, dressed in simple outfits, blend into the scenery. They are the play's silent observers and surprise everyone when they play pivotal roles in the plot. Madame Pace's garish wardrobe identifies her as purely theatrical. Her appearance is meant to startle the actors and the director. So, in that way, clothing and costumes symbolically represent different aspects. Next symbol is the revolver. The stepdaughter comes on the stage with her two siblings, the confused child whom she comforts and the anxious boy whom she berates after she notices a revolver in his pocket. The revolver at once fulfills and mocks the narrative conventions of the theater. On the one hand, it literally references Chekhov's famous declaration that if you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or third chapter it absolutely must go off. This principle, commonly known as Chekhov's gun, that everything in a story must have and fulfill a specific purpose, that all loose ends must be tied up. It is the sense of the manager's quest to convert the characters' messy and conflict family drama into a coherent, neat story. While he wants to remove loose ends by grouping up all the facts in one simultaneous, close-knit action, the characters want to express themselves individually and present their conflicting versions of events. On the other hand, while the revolver points to the narrative principle that everything must have a place and purpose, it also foreshadows the utterly inexplicable conclusion of the story, which dismantles the narrative principle. Just before the final curtain, the child drowns in the fountain and the boy shoots himself. There is no explanation for why or how this happens, and the actors, characters, and audience never determine whether the boy and child are acting out their past experiences or actually dying before the manager in the theater. The revolver, therefore, first looks like a red herring, strange, out of context, and irrelevant to the characters' drama, much like the stepdaughter's French song and dance in the first act. However, it is later revealed a crucial part of the storyline, but only because it affects a conclusion that makes just as little sense as its initial appearance. This narrative double-cross allows Pirandello to challenge the apparent opposition between messy, conflicted, uncertain reality and clean, coherent storyline in which everything has arisen and affects a logical outcome. So, just a presence of revolver can change everything. Apparently, it suggests a messy, conflicting idea. However, this has a certain goal, and through this revolver, the symbol, the dramatist wants to reach to that certain goal, and inevitably, he reaches to the goal. The next symbol is the curtain. In most normal plays, the curtain is an unremarkable piece of equipment, useful only to mark the opening and closing of the dramatic action to which it is relevant. You all know that. The curtain between the audience and the actors clearly demarcates the line between fiction and reality. When it raises at the beginning of the performance, it invites the audience into a fantasy world. And when it lowers at a show's conclusion, it dismisses the audience to return to their lives. Pirandello does away with this normal use of the curtain for staging and instead turns the curtain into an integral part of the play itself. The audience can first sense something is awry when they enter the theater and encounter the curtain raised, revealing the stage as it usually is during the daytime. It's in Act 1, page 5, the very beginning, the stage direction. You can find this line there. The world of the audience and the world of the play start out merged and remain that way throughout the show. During the 20-minute intermission after the first act, the curtain also remains up and the audience's time merges within the plays. The curtain becomes even more significant after the stepdaughter and father act out the sexual liaison at Madame Pace's atelier for the manager and the actors. Delighted with the characters' scene, the manager yells out, "Curtain here, curtain." It's in Act 2, page 59, in order to suggest that the scene would be the end of this future play's Act 1. But the machinist misunderstands the manager and actually lowers the curtain. This abruptly ends the second act of 6 characters in search of an author, which flows directly into the third. Here, through the manager, Pirandello explicitly points out that the conventional use of the curtain and then defies it, having the curtain fall in its own play and separate the audience's world from the dramas only by accident. Overall, then, the curtain in 6 characters represents Pirandello's exploration of metatheatrical elements in the play and his attempts to tear down the division between actors and audience, between theater and real life. Now, this is the time when we have finally come to the part of the resources. The necessary points that so far I have discussed are mostly taken from these resources. You can directly go to these resources and have your fun material from there. So the first one is the analysis of Luigi Pirandello's 6 characters in search of an author. The URL I have already given. The second one is a summary and analysis of Luigi Pirandello's 6 characters in search of an author. This one is more effective than the first one. Pirandello's 6 characters in search of an author, a pastiche of the old and new technique in drama by Nehajan. I have also given you the URL so that you can directly get your materials from this. 6 characters in search of an author. This is an encyclopedia material. There you can understand and you can also get the relevant materials that you need. 6 characters in search of an author, a study guide. This is from the Course Hero, and Course Hero offered you a better service. So there you can also find the basic ideas like the characters, specific characters. For example, you can have the characters of the mother, characters of the father, or characters of the manager or the stepdaughter, in that way. Although if you can follow the whole video clearly, you can also have these ideas together, so you don't have to look forward to another material. So you may not do that, but even if you want to get maximum support of your material, you can go through these links. The last one is a study material on 6 characters in search of an author by Luigi Pirandello. It's a Calcutta University's uploading. There you can find the details, also certain lines, useful lines. So these are the resources. You can use it very clearly. You can gather your materials from this. You can also have different issues regarding this. So finally, thank you very much for watching the video till the end. Stay happy, stay blessed, and I know that after getting this complex drama in a very complex way is a hard task to do. However, together we have so far finished. If you have any query, do let me know. Thank you till that part. Stay safe, stay blessed.